I know that I was told by Arvind that I should speak in Hindi, but if I started speaking Hindi, ladai ho jayega idhar hi. So I would rather avoid it as far as possible. First of all, don't judge by my color of my shirt. Okay, this has happened that I just bought it. Okay. अच्छा, दूसरी, I just wanted to tell you a story. आज newspaper में एक news आया. इंडियन एयरलाइन का एक एयरलाइन एयरक्राफ्ट है, ड्रीम लाइनर कहते हैं उसको. चार टॉयलेट होने के बावजूद 2 घंटे उड़ने के बाद वापस आया दिल्ली में. क्यों? फ्लश नहीं काम कर रहा था उसमें. चारों में कैसे बिताएगा? 6-7 घंटे के रास्ते हैं. JNU इस मौका में पहुंच के मेरे साथ, इन माई सेंस, jokes apart, JNU is just dragging on simply because of its size. Nobody seems to bother how to deal with this the situation. One of these fundamental problems that you have raised is central to that. जैसे कि लोग कहते हैं JNU एक residential research driven university है. There is no universities in this country that I am aware of, or for that matter in the entire world, where you don't have Department of Political Science, Department of Economics, Department of Sociology, and so on. It is conceptualized towards the late 60s and early 60s that India का जो situation है, उसका जो empirical reality के जो उससे जुड़े हुए theory बनाना चाहिए, derivative theory नहीं चाहिए, India का खुद का एक social science होना चाहिए. Therefore, in that kind of an environment, you have this idea of ICSSR, and you have this university which is uniquely conceptualized as a first research-driven higher educational university. That's why you have all the so-called department in other universities. JNU isko kehta hai Center for the Studies, Center for the Studies. And you have not one discipline guy teaching in each department. You will have sociology and political studies and so on and so forth. Jamana badal gaya. Effectively, all the departments are nothing like those studies. It is as good as calling like Department of Political Science, Department of Sociology, like any other universities in this country. उसका दूसरी हिस्सा ये है कि university is supposed to be a residential university. उसका मतलब जो भी इसमें admission लिया है, उसका रहने का इंतज़ाम करना चाहिए. But just as inbreeding करके जो ना नाम ही रह गया, okay, Center for the Studies and Residential University, it's only in the words. Your own pamphlets is saying that you have more than 1,000. I was talking to Akbar. Even if we adjust here and there judicious use of the spaces, it seems that more than 1,000 students have to stay outside. Nobody bothers. I know in my center, students का intake 80 से ऊपर चला गया. Compulsory paper, एक ही रूम पे पढ़ा सकता है. How do you manage? You complain. How do we fit in? 80 स्टूडेंट को इस कमरे में कैसे बैठाएंगे? तो पता नहीं, आप लोग चलाइए. That's the answer. That's what I'm saying, that nobody bothers. It goes on. So आपको hostel नहीं मिला, तो so what? Now it is this kind of a state of affair. You have to understand two things here. The overall situation in educational structure, neoliberal economy, and in education as a consumer and the right-driven and so and so, all those idealisms seems to have shifted. Khas taur par, again, this turn of events in this country, for me, I consider this as a turning point in India's history. I am not sure whether you will see the India that you know in the next 25 years. And I'm saying it not only in the positive sense, but in all kinds of other possibilities. Your great-grandfather might have seen the map of India very differently from what you have seen. And you shouldn't be surprised that if you get to see another different kind of map as a grandfather, if things goes wrong. But I hope things don't go wrong, but there is a potential for that. In a similar sense, this whole idealism of education, the residential university, research-driven, all these things have changed. And that is why your movement has to position essentially by taking a very concrete and realistic positions to counter this kind of a trend. And I think Professor Prabhu has said it right. I would not prefer to be an optimist. I would rather myself be a pessimist, because that keeps me on the toes. I don't take things for granted. And that is why I think being pessimistic, to celebrate the failure, to learn the lessons. And you remember that at the worst case scenario, this famous battle, Thermolite, what is that called? I forgot. Where the 300 Spartans were resisting against thousands and thousands of Persians' invasion. And that's what you need if you wanted to fight for your ideals, if you wanted to resist a life which is indignified, insulting, degrading, and all kinds of things. This is the moral. You might think that what I'm saying is almost like a moral principle. It's not. You don't take a moral positions, then you do not have a politics. In the name of being realistic, color will change. You know, it's quite possible people started, that's why I warned you that don't mistake my color of my shirt. In the name of being realistic and practical, you don't do it. Certain principal grounds you have to stand all your life, as an individual, as a collective. I think that is one part that you must keep in mind. So the point here is we have twofold problems. Immediately हमारा student जो है अभी आने वाला है 400 के करीब नहीं है. Already they have to be adjusted. How do we manage it? I think first of all, your suggestion is legitimate and practical, and appeal to the administration that they really take care of that concern. You are not asking for the moon. You are asking for something practical, and I think that is the first position that I would like to share with you. What I've gone through, what I've shared with your student leaders, I think it is a very practical, possible, and legitimate demand that you have done it. But we must also think beyond that. If you really want us to remain as what JNU is, as a residential research universities, you must incorporate your plans to build more and more hostels, just as you increase the number of students. Or otherwise, you stop taking the students. कहते कुछ और करते कुछ और नहीं होना चाहिए. जो आप कहते हैं उसको implement कीजिए. उसका practical level में आप उसको implement करने का plan बनाइए. And us context mein, we must also demand for a larger long term, not only the short term measures that you have designed, which is important. I'm just thinking that in cities like Delhi, different very remote areas से हमारे students लोग आते हैं उसमें without the residents, without proper residence. How do you expect them to read? How do you expect them to study? This is the first thing that I would like to share with you, and take the struggle. Do not get disheartened by the change of situation and the practicals and so on. But I've already warned you that university is like that dreamliner who flies without their toilets working. And toilets se yaad aaya, which I've been saying, which is very personal for me. मैंने नर्मदा का वार्डनशिप दिया हुआ 1.5 साल होने वाला है. टॉयलेट को ठीक करने के लिए कितना लेटर लिखा, कितने बार किया, आज तक नहीं हुआ. That's called the efficiency of JNU. You can note very well. And I'm talking to you as your teacher, as a warden. It's very disgusting, some of the word that comes in, which reminds me of an attitude which I was told when I was doing management and OB kind of courses during my student days. America वगैरह में जाके ना, तो people said if you fill a form, उसमें आपने कुछ गड़बड़ किया, the person says ना आपने उसमें गलत fill up किया है, उसको थोड़ा change कीजिए, अभी ख़त्म कर लेते उसको, change किया, sign करके काम हो जाता. इस देश में ethics अलग, उसमें आपने कुछ गलत किया फॉर्म में, वो कहेगा अरे यार तुम थिक्स भी नहीं आता है उसको fill up करना, तू कल आ जा, दिमाग मत खा. काम कैसा नहीं करना है वही हमारा खून में भरा हुआ है. And that's what I saw, 14-15 signatures, and the last में लिखा है एक toilet को western में change करना था. I am the only quarter, I have the only quarter without a western toilet, and my wife is incidentally expecting, so it's very difficult to sit in that, and she almost had a medical problem of miscarriage. I mean, I'm sharing it, it is personal, and there's always a personal and political in your project. You understand this is JNU, and therefore your demand, I'm just giving you the picture of what you must have already experienced. वो जो उस other side of table में जो बैठे हुए ना, उसका attitude कैसे रहेगा, कैसे काम चलाएगा? वो कहेगा अच्छा उसको बंद कर दो, 9 9B को हॉस्टल नहीं देगा, ये कर दो, उसको ट्रिपल बना देंगे, चौथा बना देंगे, all kinds of things they will say, but something that practically keeping in mind your ideal of the university and उसको कैसे करना चाहिए, कैसे करेंगे, and that's what we lack, and JNU is no exception. And I often said, I don't know how many of you know that I make movies, so in one of my movies it's based on JNU, the hero is a ex-JNUite. उसमें एक dialogue मैंने deliberately लगा दिया, India is a big toilet, JNU is no exception, don't worry. And when this guy was doing pishap, in some of the jungle areas. And that's what we need to remember. The last part for the workers. We have always this, who should get the law, this is not new. Who is more, in fact, even my toilet wala story, had I been a UPI, I often think about it. Uska naak thoda lamba hota, mere tarah aang nahi hota, koi contact hota office mein, साला बन जाता, 2 महीने के अंदर मेरा टॉयलेट फिक्स हो जाता. कभी कभी ये दिमाग में आता है, मैं सही कह रहा हूँ. So you know what this mindset is. It's a very clear cut fact set. So in the same sense, who gets entitlement, who doesn't get it, the worst case scenario is those people whom you consider as contract, as if they are less of a human being. That's how the whole logic works. आप कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वर्कर हो तो आप इंसान नहीं है, थोड़ा कम है इंसान से. यही वाला जो देखने का जो तरीका नज़रिया है, उसको जितना हम लोग खिलाफ कर सकता है, it is not for them. It is for your own sense and sensibility as a human being. I go back to history. 1968 में जो फ्रेंच में जो स्टूडेंट्स का प्रॉब्लम हुआ था, You remember that what they said? जो क्लास में जो हम लोग पढ़ते हैं, उसका फायदा क्या है? दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है, समाज में क्या हो रहा है? We don't need to study this. And I remember that Foucault once said it, you don't need intellectuals to tell them, common people will understand themselves what's going on. So in a similar sense, to workers or जो आप लोग का जो रिश्ता है, people will say, JNU स्टूडेंट्स की बारे में बात नहीं करता, बड़े बात करते हैं, अभी जो वर्कर की सवाल लेके आया, all these are all बकवास. You as a human being, you are entitled to think about your life. It is about who you want to be. कोई आसपास में जो रहता है उसको किसी नज़रिया से देखे कि कैसे रहना है, ज़िंदगी कैसे बनना है, उस स्कीम ऑफ थिंग्स में आपने जो ESI बेसिक मेडिकल फैसिलिटी भी, बेसिक जो प्रोटेक्शन है PDF वाला, उसका जो प्रोविडेंट फंड का जो मामला है, without that how do you look at them as human beings? And if you don't support it, I will say that you are neither a student nor, more worst case, you are not a human being. And I think that is why, so what I wanted to say at the end of the day is that, as Professor Prabhu has said it very rightly, teachers के बारे में जो कहा, I think it's very right. I'll tell you one thing. 6 पे कमीशन के बाद टीचर्स लोग धरना जाता है, उसका नंबर कम होते जा रहा है. भगवान जाने जो 7 पे कमीशन आएगा, उसके बाद टीचर्स के मीटिंग में कैसे लगेगा. आई एम नॉट वेरी श्योर ऑफ दैट सिचुएशन. को-ऑप्शन का जो मामला है वेरी इजी है, बट आई थिंक people say it's idealism है, JNU student है. I'm telling you again, I've said this many times whenever I met you, बिना idealism के you become just like an animal. जो एक जो भगवान राजनेश कहता है, ओशो भी कहता है, he said buffaloes don't get bored. We get bored and we get offended, and that's the distinction. And that is precisely because we have certain ideals, we have certain values, we have certain ways of thinking it. If you want to train these people as consumer, as machines, your JNU is nothing but manufacturing factory that produces thousands and thousands of unemployed graduations with degrees year after year. That's a different image of JNU. If you don't want that JNU, if you want a quality human being, a dignified human being who is sensitive to himself or herself as well as fellow beings around. Your struggle is part of that ethos, and JNU will lose at the end of the day if they started asking you to be more practical and do things. Go against all these discouragements that you must have faced it. Fight it as much as possible. I don't know as a student, as a teacher, I don't know how much I can help you. I've told you even I'm struggling for my toilet. लेकिन हार नहीं मानना. At the end, that's why I gave you this example of Spartans fight. I always hold it. Worst case scenario mein, I recover myself, my dignity. Salah, I don't become like you. I become different and I fight it till my death. And that is what we should do it. People say they're passionate and others. I have lived for almost 50 years, 20 years in the academic world. And I'm still doing it against odds. I'm telling you, that's what draws me when you ask me. I know Akbar and others are a little skeptical. They say, aayega ya nahi, you know, maamla badal gaya. Forget it. Whenever there is a call in your heart and mind, you have to be there together. And the more we are united, the more we insist. And then whole fight against this whole idea of practical blah blah. सिर्फ ये कहना जो आप कहते हैं उसको करने के लिए practical plan बना लीजिए. या नहीं तो कह दीजिए JNU is nothing like a residential university. It is not a research university. We are all like any other private universities producing fashionable degrees after degrees and unemployed graduates and graduates and graduates. If you do that, okay, I'll withdraw that fight. But if you claim JNU is different, then please implement and do not make your students to suffer without a place to live. And if you think that your university, this university is inclusive and equalitarian and so forth, then you cannot treat the workers the way you treat. As simple as that. And that's the ground we fight it. And I said it, without the moral principle, you will lose. The moment you lose your moral principle and this idealism, I'm already telling you that you lost your battle. There's nothing to fight. Hold on to it, however minority and on the backside, the best thing will come when you think that you are being cornered. Remember that. That's the spirit that we must maintain. And I wish you all the best, and whatever I can do, whatever my mind, heart, and solidarity is with you. And I just come to express my solidarity with you. Thank you very much.